sorry.
Yeah, that's wrong. Ready? I'd like to call this meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody to January 15th, 2019. Official time is 6 o'clock. We need approval of the agenda. If you'll notice that there's a addition to that on the correction of appeals and adjustment term to begin March 16th, 2019 through March 15th, 2024, and a request to add closure Upper River Road and Dr. Lee Road for a 12-hour period in January or early February. That said, I need a motion and then a second.
So moved, Chairman.
We got a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Have it. Thank you very much. Tonight, our invocation and pledge will be Pastor Joe Ridley, a body of Christ Church. Always a pleasure.
God bless you. Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we approach the throne of grace. Thank you for mercy and grace to help. Thank you for who you are and what you've done, Father, what you want to do. You said all I've always acknowledged you and you would direct our path. We pray, oh God, for your own kind of commissioners. Not only them, Father, every government in this county. But thank you, oh God, for these United States of America, oh God, and you see every situation and every circumstance that goes on. You told us and all I've always acknowledged you and you would direct our paths. We need our path directed. Thank you for your wisdom and knowledge that you give unto us, Father, that we can represent you here in this earth, Father, one toward another, regardless of nationality, creed, or color, treating everybody like we want to be treated. Thank you right now for your outstretched hand, your mercy, and your truth. For the victory you won for us on Calvary, Father, and how you, hallelujah, were resurrected to give us justification and a right to live righteously. In the name of Jesus, bless this meeting tonight. Touch every life, oh God, and every word that's spoken. We want it to be a representation of you. In the name of Jesus, we thank you now. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you. Ready? All right, as we move on to our meeting tonight, we've got a reappointment of Jan Andrews to the Board of Appeals and Adjustment for a 5-year term beginning March 16th of 2019 through March 15th of 2024. Ms. Andrews was just appointed in June 2018 to complete the term of Beth Baker that expired in March of 2019. That said, I need a motion to reappoint.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. We have a second. Second. Any more discussion? None. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Consent agenda, and for approval of the minutes, we have the first Tuesday, January 3rd of 2019, amended to include request comments. You have an insert in your minutes. You'll see where the minutes were changed to. What were the minutes?
Well, we need a call for any omissions or corrections.
Okay. All right. With that said, I need a motion to approve this. What did I do?
We need a call.
What do we need to go for?
A call for omissions or corrections.
Okay. Call for omission and correction. All right. Keep me straight. All right.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I need to go back and change my vote to a yes, or I abstain. Margie discovered that you can't abstain unless it's a conflict.
There's a direct
Okay, I've got it. All right. Now we got it.
And that's regarding the animal control position.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now we got that straight. Keep me straight. Now with that said, I need a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So move. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. But, we have visitors tonight. We have a Chris West, the General Counsel of Terramore Development LLC, representing Robert McNair, and a request for abandonment of a portion of Oak Street and right of way of State Route 22 in Haddock.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. You're fine.
Thank you for having us tonight. With Terramore, we're commercial developers, and we have a contract with Mr. McNair for the purchase of his property. And this request is related to the future plans that we have for the property with Mr. McNair, hopefully selling it to us. And what we're requesting, and you may have in your folders, but it's to abandon a portion of the right-of-way and the public street if the board sees fit. I think that's more in the board's discretion. But this property is within the Haddock Station area, and it fronts Georgia 22 and Oak Street there. So this is Mr. McNair's property here, and there's the way this came about, this right of way here that is along 22 is when Haddock Station was set out, that they had wide rights of way, like 90 feet. I guess that used to, in looking at it, used to be railroad property. I guess it was a railroad station there. And at some point over the last 100 years or so, the county obtained the property from the railroad, the streets there. I didn't look that far back in a title record. My assumption is it's probably over 80 years ago. Nonetheless, when the DOT came through and formed the state route there and widened it, it didn't go all the way as wide as to what was the old Haddock Railroad Station right away when they laid that out. They laid out 90 feet. The state only took like 60 something, so it left additional right of way that we believe is the county's on both sides of that road. So that is, for all intents and purposes, been used by the property owners on each side. In fact, if you go one down from us or two lots down from us, there's a house that I think the front porch is in this right of way that we're talking about on their track. So it truly hadn't been used by the public, that portion. Now there's the portion along Oak Street here that has two sheds in it there, and that came about basically it came out a little bit differently, but same 90 feet right of way that was the main street here. But these folks here have essentially used it like it was theirs, for those buildings appear to be over 40 or 50 years old. So what we're requesting is that the board, Ms. Brody or Ms. Tyson can correct me, but I believe the procedure would be to put it up for should the board choose to go for it. And I don't think there would need to be a vote tonight except to put it to public notice. It would need to go in the newspaper. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we can talk about the procedure in just a moment.
Very good.
Oak and North Oak's the same street, correct?
So.
Yeah. Okay.
So with that, entertain any questions that you guys might have of us.
Commissioner Pitts, this is your.
Right. And I guess I want to know what type of project you guys are looking to build there. And
Sure.
if you can share that, it's great. But if not, if you need to keep it to yourself, I completely understand that too.
I'd be happy to. We are planning for a Dollar General store within this
That area.
property. Okay. Yes, sir. And my understanding is that you can't do this to get a per se just for the purpose of the development. This will be an indirect result of it. But in other words, you can't just do this for that. But that is the purpose for it, and that will historically probably bring about $80,000 annually into the tax, in terms of taxes for the county additionally, as well as jobs. I think about 10 jobs right in that area, 10 or 11.
Is this already zoned commercially?
It is.
It is.
So John, do you have any input about this road or any thoughts?
Me and Ashley met down there and, I mean, that strip he's talking about, which is 24 feet wide, and then it comes down the other side over there next to Oak Street, which I didn't know it was Oak Street because there ain't no signs on it.
Right.
South Oak is on up the road, you know. I ain't got no problem with that. Me and Ashley was talking about Oak Street. You know, the people that owned on the other side, how would they get in there, you know? But I don't think y'all gonna do anything with Oak Street, are you?
No, sir, we're not. Whether Oak Street stays open or if the board determines to close it, it's not gonna affect us one way or the other.
What about Pine Street back in the back?
We won't have any access points back there and it won't affect us.
Speaking of Pine, I know we had a question. Your site plan seemed to call for the drainage retention area and a landscape buffer there that would cross over Pine Street. I know Pine Street, we're sort of off topic a little bit, but.
That would need to be pulled in.
Okay.
And that, we'll still have enough room.
Okay, so I just wanted to breach that and attempt to
Thank you.
quell any future problems.
Because the property line goes across Pine Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would, and I suspect that our guys that lay these out, we've got an in-house engineer that lays this out. He probably didn't realize that was a public street and didn't recognize that he would need to shorten that up. But in terms of our site, we'll be able to make it work. And this is a preliminary.
There'd be no interference with the back street. Because I know there's a water line right there along Pine at the edge of the property as well.
Okay. We will, we'll certainly take that into consideration. And there'll be no reason that we would need to interfere with Pine.
I had a few questions for you.
Sure.
I think just to clarify, for the minutes, the issue of the name of the road, there is an Oak Street, one street up from this.
That's what I'm looking at right now. See, I've got, it's North Oak, right?
There's North Oak and South Oak. And I printed these out for you all. It may already be in your packet, but just straight from our site.
Sure.
This property in question is highlighted there.
Okay.
You'll see this road that we are calling Oak Street has no name. There's no street sign, and it's not denoted on our maps at all. It's really a sort of a little cut through. I don't know that I would even call it a road, but it's not noted. And there's no street sign. So I just don't want there to be confusion about this being, us calling it Oak Street, because there is an Oak Street that is a main thoroughfare there, one street up.
That's why I was trying to clarify, because that's actually, I think if you go up a little bit further, it show north, and if the map was bigger, it show north there. And then that, where you talking about, just past, I guess, Trish Ann's, antique shop.
This sort of cut through is directly across from Pine Road, correct, John?
No, the one across 22, that's Harlem.
We got Pine on there,
Yeah, the tax.
Pine's back in the back.
Okay,
but they showing Pine on the tax
Yeah.
assessors being straight across.
so that's the actual road that we're referencing that is directly across from that, not what we all would think of as Oak Street.
I believe that we got the name of that street from some of the earlier deed references. I've got our legal that I'm looking at. I don't have the older deeds with me, but I'm thinking that's probably where that came from. And to your point, it may not be signed as Oak Street now. And I don't know how we might, if the board determines that they want to close that portion, how we might list it. But we could look at the best way to name that in any notice.
An additional question that I have for you all, there will be some cost associated with a public notice in the paper. I think there's only one. We'll need to send out notice if the board decides to do this, via certified mail to any adjoining property owners. From viewing the map, I think the only one, and Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, but would be here, Linda Baker and the Salvador. I think one, the edge here. Right here. Just sort of that top corner that would be abandoned would touch their property, so they would need to be notified of any public hearings, but there would be a cost associated with the public notice in the paper, and a cost associated with the quitclaim deed and the filing of that quitclaim deed.
We'd be happy to undertake those fees,
Okay.
and that's my understanding as well. My understanding of the state code is that the adjoining property owner that for the abandoned property would need to be notified. Obviously, we know it, so
Yeah.
But they would be the only additional one that would need a letter.
Actually, if we abandon that street, it's got to revert to it's got to go to the tax assessor's office, and then it's got to be picked up by somebody, correct?
No, so we're not, the request is not to abandon the street. It would just be, so here, we would still have this cut through that we're calling Oak Street. It would still be there and would be the county's.
Portion of that
They
street.
are, right, they are only requesting that this, right here, be abandoned, this right of way next to the street. The street itself would remain as is. It's not, that street's not been maintained by the county. John and I spoke about this in years and years and years.
Okay.
But it is a somewhat paved sort of cut through. And so this, abandoning this right of way, would not affect that street access.
Right, but then when we abandon that, it goes on the tax digest to somebody, correct?
It would go back on the tax roll. So since it would only affect Mr. McNair's property, it would revert back to Mr. McNair. Now, if he decides to sell it, that would be his. But right now, his choice. But right now, it's Mr. McNair's property, so it would revert back to him. Because there's really no market value, we don't have to list it for sale at fair market value because there's really no monetary value. But the benefit down the road, if the county decides to do this, is that it would go back on this portion of property would go back on the tax rolls.
Comments or questions?
I don't have any additional questions, Chairman.
Any action at this time?
I got just a couple questions up. If we're gonna have just a short section of road that's not gonna access anything and we don't maintain it anyway, why wouldn't we try to get all that back on the tax rolls and make it the development entryway into there?
Well, do you mind if I share your site plans?
No, not at all. Go right ahead.
Okay. You'll see that the plans for the property, which has nothing to do with our decision to abandon, but would not utilize that roadway at all. Okay. My concern, and John and I discussed this on the property, my concern if we decide to abandon Oak Street, and it's really not served a public purpose probably in a very long time, but if you were to abandon the entirety of the Oak Street right-of-way there, the Rosemary Blunt property, which is right next to it, is an abandoned home. There's notices on the door, no one's living there, but that is the only access to that home.
Gotcha.
And so if we were to abandon that road, they would then, it would affect their ability to really turn in and out of that home should someone, move in there in the future.
And I guess this is just a question in principle. If we shouldn't close the road just for the purpose of a development, but we have a developer asking us to close it on behalf of the person that owns it, why wouldn't the person that owned it ask for it? Because it seems like we are closing it for one reason.
Well, Mr. West does have, not a power of attorney, but an authorization signed and notarized by the homeowner to speak on his behalf to seek the abandonment. They are seeking the abandonment based on their position that it serves no public purpose. It's not, been utilized by the public.
Mr. Kitchen, I guess, for the Oak Street, the closure of Oak Street, that is not,
It's not gonna be your entryway anyway, so it's not.
yes, sir, that's right. And it's really not gonna affect us. What the thing that does assist us it does help us is that additional right of way to help make the project work. It allows, things like parking and turning movements, allows us to get a truck in there comfortably as opposed to, tighter maneuvers and that kind of thing. So,
And so the abandonment would be based in statute on whether or not the board feels that this portion there of that right of way serves a substantial public purpose. And if it does not, then the board sort of can go forward with initiating abandoning that portion of the right of way.
and once again, the portion that we're really only asked for on this side has got 2 old buildings in it right now. That's somewhere.
Any more questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion, we move forward with the public hearing for the abandonment of portion of Oak Street and right of way of State Route 22 in Adam.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? If none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
And I've got a public notice already drafted. And
Very good.
just in case the board decided to go forward with this, does the board have any thoughts one way or another on when this is placed back on the calendar for public notice?
How long has it got to be given before?
2 weeks, once a week for 2 weeks.
Just do the.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, John.
I said this is a normal protocol. I mean,
Right.
as soon as we can get it, public hearing and get it passed so they can move on with the development, I think it'd be great.
Thank you. But I do have probably one change to that legal.
Okay.
With that Pine Street, I was looking at earlier today, the very bottom section of the right of way that comes across, this dash line demarks the edge of, I guess that would be the northern edge of Pine Street. We probably want to move that legal up by about 5 feet. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
That to revise the legal to pull that. And I'm sorry I didn't get it to you sooner. I just
That's
noticed it
okay.
today.
Do you want to have your team, whoever did that, revise that and send that to
Yep,
me?
We'll be happy to do that. Sure
And
will.
we can send out a certified to the abutting homeowner and run the public notice. And then based on the agreement that your company or the homeowner will be responsible for those costs.
Very good. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
All right. And you'll let us know when it's time for the agenda time we put on
If this runs, if we can get this done this week, it'll have 2 weeks to run in the paper before the February 5th meeting, if y'all want to have the public hearing at that meeting.
All right.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Move on tonight to new business, removal of trees at the courthouse. Mr. Resner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 2 trees over at the courthouse that are depicted on the drawing in your packets here. And in talking with Judge Green and some of our building maintenance folks, and I think John Lowe's taken a look at this in the past, and I think, Mr. Chairman, you had a chance to look at this as well. There are 2 trees there that if you go up the hill kind of past the courthouse, sort of on the end where the old jail sits, there are 2 trees there. One is just behind a small yellow building that belongs to Burt King, and then another is I don't know, maybe 30 feet from that, just down the hill, and both of them are there where cars park. One of the trees has had issues with limbs falling out of the trees and damaging some cars, and the tree is not in great shape. The other tree is not in such bad shape from a health standpoint, but it does have, I don't know if it's a hickory tree, it drops some type of nuts. And so those have damaged cars and that type of thing. What we'd like to do is remove those trees so that we don't have, additional damage to vehicles, and then smooth that out to create some additional parking there.
We know those trees are ours. Bert renting that building, or is he own?
I think he owns that building.
That little building beside it's his too. That hickory tree right up next to that building.
I think he owns the little tree that he owns the little building that the tree is up against.
But the tree's on that.
That's right.
And when you said Burke's little building, I was wondering to make sure that I didn't want to cut somebody else's tree down. But
right.
Yeah, the hickory tree, everybody knows it's, it starts dropping hickory nuts, it's damaging the car, and that black gum, I think it was up and shedding limbs for quite some time. But any more questions, discussion? None. I need a motion to give them approval to remove these two trees.
So moved, Chairman.
Have a motion, have a second? Second. No more discussion, all in favor, aye? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. Approval to close Upper River Road and Dr. Lee Road for a 12-hour period in late January or early February.
Mr. Chairman, I'll start off on this one. I might hand it off to Commissioner Kitchens for some additional remarks on this. But we've been approached about a production that's going to be filming in the Macon area in the next month, either right at the end of January or early February. They would like to use Upper River Road, sort of the corner there, Upper River Road and Dr. Lee Road. There's the old convenience store there. They are going to be, they want to film in that area, utilizing that and those roads. Because of the nature of the movie, they want to make the road such that it looks like a road hasn't been there for some period of time. So the road would have to be, that stretch of road would have to be closed completely for a 12-hour period. And so just kind of wanted to get the board's thoughts on closing that for that 12-hour stretch so that they could do some filming there. And Commissioner Kitchens, do you have anything else on?
No, we've done something similar like this with the movie 42, right up the road, a couple of miles up the road. And basically, we've asked that the film production company contact all the landowners and whatever it takes to make them amenable to it. So it's whoever they would impact touching the area that they're going to work in, they have to make it right with them, and they have, from what I understand.
We'll need a motion for this and allow you to work with the film crew also as far as, seeing to their needs. And Commissioner Kitchens, with making Bibbs had his opportunity to work with the same deal. So if you got any questions, we can relate them to him and for his advice.
I know I was going to mention as well, I think I understand that the sheriff and Haley from the Chamber of Commerce are going to be meeting with the production crew or some of the production folks tomorrow. And so we might have some more details at that point. But since we had the meeting tonight, just want to go ahead and share all that.
Sure. Any questions?
No, I will make a comment, Chairman, just for public information. Haley Watson is our film ready contact for Jones County. Every county in the state's got one, so that the film companies know there's one point of contact. And Haley's our contact, and they'll. But even though it needed approval from us, they come through Haley, Jason, and.
Okay. No more questions or discussion. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved, Chairman.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
No more discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. No business tonight. Department heads, who'd like to start? Mr. Graham?
I don't have anything tonight, I'm just glad to be here.
It's great. I'll pick on you, Mr. Risner. You wanna
Yes,
go
sir.
out of order tonight? You always get to go last. We'll let you go in the middle of the group tonight.
That sounds good. We've got several things I wanted to mention. One, I wanted to ask the board if y'all would be open to doing a work session before our next commission meeting. We've been working with 6 or 7 other counties, kind of stretching from here over towards the Augusta area, on a rural broadband project. And just as a disclaimer, I guess this is not a project where the county is going to go out and run fiber to each house in the county and that kind of thing. But what it would do is get fiber a lot closer to us. And it's really a neat regional project, I think, that would have a huge impact on an area of Georgia that's either underserved or unserved from a broadband standpoint. So just wanted to spend maybe an hour before the next commission meeting talking about that project with the board, if that would be okay.
Sure. All right. I think it'd be great.
A few other things real quick. The library project is moving right along. It looks like we're going to target a March reopening for the library. We've had some delays with the weather, certainly, and with some delays related to the furniture and equipment to go on the inside. But it's really looking great, and excited about that. So sometime in March, we hope to be able to move back in. The TE project, the sidewalks and the streetscape in Haddock, is largely complete. We are waiting on lighting in Haddock, and the last update I had was that the lighting was set to arrive March 6th and should be installed March 9th. So that's obviously subject to change, but that's kind of what we're targeting now for a completion of the TE project. You may recall we talked some months back about selling about 30 parcels of land in Jones County that went through the tax sale process and that the county ended up with. We have gone through now and sold all those parcels after all the deed work was complete, and the commission for the auction and that type of thing. We cleared $61,788. And we've got all those parcels back on the tax rolls now. So glad to report that. 2 more things real quick. Our annual audit is underway, and so we're diligently working on that, Levita and her team. And then the last thing I was going to mention is that we've been working with Schneider Electric, and next month we should have for you the final agreement for your consideration and also the financing. So we're going through now soliciting proposals. We'll soon be issuing an RFP from banks for the financing proposals there. And so hope to be able to bring you both of those at one time so that you can consider that, knowing what the true the true and final cost would be there. So hope to have that next month.
That it? Mr. Pelkey, you'd like to go next?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just wanted to update on a particular situation that took place in River North today at the Deer Run lift station. Of course, that's the largest lift station that we have in River North, and we had a malfunction in one of the it's called a guider pole, and what it does, it guides the pumps down to the base of the lift station and gets it situated on the pipe. Well, we believe that either the flange or the bracket has either broke or became very loose, and what it did, it bent the guider pull on pump number 2, and it does not sit flush on the pipe. So what it does is we call it boiling the water. It's just turning the water. It's not pumping it. Currently there are 5 major repairs being done in River North. on the sewer aspect of it. I had to pull our portable diesel pump that we had at Deer Run to another location, actually number 8 pump that we are currently working on, replacing the discharge pipe. So I don't have redundancy there. You know, every place that we have in the water department and sewer has to have built-in redundancy. So that concerns me. I guess my question is to you, do I view this as another potential emergency type of situation where I can get action done on it, or should I go ahead and through the bidding process? If I had the diesel portable pump there, I feel a little more comfortable. I'm down to 1 pump, and this is the major lift station in the whole subdivision. So, you know.
How quick could you get one from renting one?
Well, I could probably have one. I've got one rented already, and we have our own. One of the repairs that we are currently working on should be completed by the end of the week. I can bring it back and set it up, and that'll allow me a little more time if everything goes well on that repair.
What time frame do you have of that one remaining pump where to quit? I know it keeps kicking out because it's coding on the.
Yeah, it's coding on the panel, and it sets a default, and it doesn't allow the pump to run. And so, I mean, that's if the other one does something happens to the other one, and I don't have the diesel pump there, then we could have an issue with an overflow.
I can tell you what I was always told when situations like this. If don't constitute an emergency. If this happens or if that happens, you know, and that's terrible because I don't like being. I've been in your situation. I don't like being there. I don't like being handicapped like that. But that's why I was wondering if it's a day or if you're talking travel time of 2 or 3 days to get one here, physically get one here, or does anybody local have one?
Well, that's the problem. We don't, locally it's hard to get one.
Right.
Generally go through Godwin Pumps up in Atlanta. But, I mean, I could try to see if I can get one, or just see if we can speed up the other repair I can transport the one I have here, there.
Any idea what we're looking at expense-wise?
No, not until you would really physically have to get a man down there to take the look. And that's about, it's about a 27-foot wet well. So, I mean, it's not an easy process, but.
What do they charge us on those pump reels? $3,500 a month or something like that? Is that about right?
Yeah.
What's the cost of ownership
of a pump?
Yeah.
I've never really truly priced one. I know prior to me coming here, they purchased one, when they acquired the lift stations. So I don't know exactly what, they paid for that.
A legal standing, we have to be very careful.
Yes, I know.
Deeming something an emergency and not sending it out to bid. I don't want us to, if it's an emergency, it's an emergency.
Right.
But, we walk a thin line not sending a project out. So I would just want to advise the board to make sure, in their opinion, your opinion, it is an emergency situation.
If it quits tomorrow, between Mr. Pilkey and Jason, they can go forward at that point and make whatever needs to.
But do we make a motion this evening that we start the process of going out for bid for the equipment that's needed, and then if it goes out before that period, before we can make a decision, then they automatically have the emergency capabilities to make whatever decisions are necessary.
All right.
So
Jeffrey, you said you will have one to move to this location by the end of the week.
Yeah, we're hoping. Yeah. If not by the end of the week, possibly by the weekend. it's fairly unusual to have 5 major repairs at one time. It's stretching my resources a little bit, but it just so happened.
Buddy, see if you can get one on retainer, just hold it. I'll run and pick it up right quick.
That's right.
If we have to, we can run up and pick it up, we have to. But, all right, you made a motion to,
go out for bid for other equipment that Mr. Pelkey needs to make the repairs that are necessary. And if the pump goes out before that time, that we can make a decision that he has the authority with Jason's say so to get whatever emergency equipment that he needs to keep the pump running.
all right, have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lowe?
How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, good to you.
It's about Walnut Grove off of Light Tie. I know Chris has heard about it and probably Mr. Tommy. Have you heard anything in that subdivision about a cross drain between 2 lots? The water has to, it comes in and hits the road and it's got to make a 90-degree turn,
I know what you're talking
go
about.
through a guy's driveway, and then hit the cross drain.
That's the backside of Reagan's Landing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, I have heard of that.
And I went over there and done some measuring and had a locate done and hadn't really dug down and found anything yet, but to put a cross drain in there, you're looking at probably about 65 feet of pipe, because you got to run an angle to hit a lot line on the other side of the road. And it has gone. Reagan Skinner called me the other day about it, because the man that lives in the house that's retired, he's the one that's been really complaining, because they built the other house and all that done was push more water toward him. And where we talking about putting this pipe in, it'll be right there between them 2 lots to catch the water. Shoot it on out, and then whatever it don't catch, maybe it can run down and get the water out of there a little bit quicker. I mean, all it's doing is going down to, what's that, Twin Lakes?
Mm-hmm.
We're not just moving the problem off. We're not going to cause a problem down there, are we?
I think it's already been a problem down there for a while.
It won't be a worse problem now.
I don't think it's gonna be no worse. I mean, water's still gonna run that way.
The same amount of water still gonna be going, it's just.
All we're doing is getting the zigzag out of it, because that
Yeah,
zigzag
because
is backing up in
you
their
know,
yard.
we're inheriting a mistake of the developer when they put it in, and like I said, if you go straight across where it's at now, where it's at now is gonna go in the front door of the next house, correct?
Right. But I'm gonna put it over on a property line
Right.
between 2 lots across the road. Can't go straight across. You gotta go across an angle.
That will, right now we've got flooding in that one area, and when it does come down, because of the crazy angles that's having to go in.
Because that guy that's got the nice yard, I mean, he said water's been all the way up just about to his garage, and he's got flowers and all kind of stuff down there, shrubs and pine straw. It winds up on the other side of the road.
How do we stop this in the future from allowing developers to basically take their runoff from theirs and put it on somebody else's property without any consequences?
It's a good question. There ought to be something in the engineering, to look at that. I know, my road building day, we always had to, figure water, the acreage you were.
You should have a DPD permit for runoff, right?
You would think so. I mean, we always had to figure the watershed and all before we did even culvert sizes. And
should have been a settlement pond built around there somewhere.
Yeah, nobody put it in. Like I said, so many times we end up inheriting either bad roads of poor base or improper drainage, and I don't know what the solution is. I'll be honest with you, but I can't say
But
that.
I'm just bringing this before y'all tonight to think about and see what you want to do about trying to get a pipe put in.
I mean, it's draining, but it's, like I said, the rain we've had here recently, it's, you know, everybody.
See, this went on, but before they built this other house, they had problems. And I hadn't heard anything from the gentleman, but he called Reagan Skinner about it. And Reagan called me the other day.
Any thoughts, questions from the board? Need to fix it?
I don't see it. Choice on that. You got it in your budget, right?
Yeah.
You got anything else tonight? Anything else tonight you want to talk about, or that was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we need a roll-off truck. Real bad.
We got 2 in the shop right now. You know, we
We
saw.
got 2 running and 2 in the shop, and one I ain't gonna spend no money on, so.
Are we still renting a roll-off truck?
Huh?
Are we still renting a roll-off
No.
truck?
My guys have been working pretty hard out there. I mean, they've been working on Fridays, a little bit of everything, you know, trying to keep up. Cause with the holidays, the way they fell, it was pretty rough. You know, being off on Mondays and then it was closed on Tuesdays, and when you got started back after Christmas, man, they hit them hard. Been the same way with New Year's week, you know.
I was making sure we weren't still renting, that's all.
Right.
We ain't called yet. I hope I don't have to. I hope my 2 guys can take up the slack. I hope Laura can go and get one fixed, maybe tomorrow, and get it back. Still have 3 running.
With that said, you know, we saw the efficiency of how that contractor was able to literally take 3 loads at a time. And if we do decide to go down the road and go with another truck, I mean, we've got an opportunity to spend a little extra money, but, you know, basically take one person and take one, every trip you'll be hauling basically 3 loads. I watched them sit there, take 3 roll-offs and put on one truck and go to the dump with it. Cause he got the ability to compact the trash.
I mean, it might cut down on my guys having to work on Fridays, you know. So, I mean, that's overtime right there.
I'm just saying for future purposes, you know, purchases, we might want to look at a more efficient route. Yes, you're gonna spend extra money doing it, but if you look at where we're gonna save by cutting a truck going 2 additional trips, and really and truly, you know, if you can take, and that same truck, if he does start getting behind, could accumulate multiple roll-offs on site, so that one of our regular roll-offs could pick it up and take a compacted load. Because if you look at the difference in weights in our compactors versus the catch-alls, those
Right.
catch-alls, they don't have anything on them. Couple tons, you know,
Yeah.
2-3 tons, and I mean, these trucks are able to haul 18 tons. So you're hauling these partial loads, but if we can sit there and take that and actually compact it 3 into 1, and you're cutting, you got one truck, if he makes 3 trips in a day's time, it's just like him making 9. And he's not gonna make 9. 3 or 4 is probably a average day for them, Martin.
Yeah, which, I mean, you know, they ain't but one landfill, and everybody in the world goes down now.
Right.
I mean,
It's
sometimes
longer
they have
than
to
that.
sit for an hour, you know.
But there's more efficient routes we can look at, you know, when that time comes. John selling some surplus equipment off, so that might take a little of the pain off as far as when we look at this, any addition.
Yeah, I think we need to look at that, because one trip down there
Yeah,
saves than 3.
right.
John, before you have a seat, if you don't mind, on next commission meeting, we had moved the Watson Drive abandonment issue to February the 5th. If you're going to be here that meeting, we'll save it and talk about it then. But if you don't think you're going to be
I'll be
here, okay, good. That I just know that it'll come before the board, and they would want your opinion. So that's great if you
Okay.
think you'll be here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice. Any citizens might like to come forward? No citizens want to come forward. Mr. Robinson, you want to start us off tonight on commissioner comment?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Wow. Commissioner Martin, I love your haircut.
Thank you.
You caught me by surprise when you walked in. Thought I had a guess.
Yeah. My cousin, younger cousin, we graduated probably a minute apart. Last week was diagnosed with cancer, and she was bald. She sent me pictures. So I said, well, I was saving my hair for a track and a possible move to Florida, but this seemed way more important. And I said, I'm going to join you. Mm-hmm. And if you're my Facebook friend, you saw my daughters cutting my hair. So that was a neat experience to have my babies cut my hair off. So we're praying for healing and expedience because she's a great person and the least I could do. So with that being said, Happy New Year. I'm glad we made it again. And just real quickly, the roll-off trucks, I get it. And then I can tell you I was upset when I saw what we paid for the rental after the accident. If it makes sense, it makes dollars. If it saves money, then we automatically need to do it. It's just a no-brainer. If you look at the cost over a year, it probably almost pays for itself based on what I saw for rentals. Georgia Film Ready, we are, I think, on the brink of having some great opportunities. This is one of those, however big or small the project is, we ought to participate. With that being said, we also need to encourage Central Georgia Tech and our school system to participate in the certification process. And as much as we can do as a county to help facilitate that, we need to do it. I am working with a client in Milledgeville who's working on a soundstage. So we are close to it. And I think we should be ahead of the game if we can't catch up. And there's only 3 classes, so I think it's something we need to do. Broadband, I'm excited about it. I've been hearing about it for a while. I know Macon Bibb signed the MOU with the transportation group, which also has a piggyback of broadband on it. Hope we do hit those areas. I happen to be probably the only commissioner that is still on dial-up internet service. So broadband is a no-brainer. We need it for business and industry, of course, education and so on. So I hope that we're able to facilitate something quickly. Am getting calls and saw a Facebook post. I'm not sure if you all got it about the wild dogs who tore up a kitten. Happened to be Miss McClure's, I think, pet. So they made calls out to animal control, asked for cages, but I think something had to do with the temperature. You can't cage during certain times of the year when the temperature drops. They did not get favorable responses, so I'm hoping that this body can make sure that that doesn't happen. We need enforcement on the leash law. Evidently, I live in the middle of 16 acres, so everything is wild and running, so I expect it. But in a neighborhood, to have your pet ripped apart in front of your eyes, I think that that's disheartening, and I think citizens will start to take action, and I don't want that to happen. I know I would, to protect my pets and my children. So keep that in mind for those of you who are actively engaged with the animal control. And lastly, I think that we have a great opportunity in Haddock. So anytime we have these things to come up, I think as quickly as we can to help speed up the economy and economic development along, great. I know we can't do it just because, but it's just a no-brainer. It says that we're business friendly in the county, and we need to be for jobs and opportunities for our students and our citizens. So, thank y'all very much. Happy New Year again.
All right. Commissioner Pitt.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This past weekend, I had a chance to tour Jake's Woods with Miss Earlene Hamilton, and found out we have a hidden jewel here in Jones County, and the history behind it. Some of the stone that's at the courthouse came from Jake's Woods. So I'm sure if you reach out to Miss Earlene, she'll be glad to take you on a tour of that piece of property, and it's really exciting to actually see it and to see how things were done years and years and years ago, and still the stones are there. So I think with the tourism team that came to visit a couple of months ago, they actually toured Jake's Woods, and the group that came down from Atlanta saw it as well. So we have another hidden jewel that people would love to come see, and hopefully in the future and something we can look at trying to partner with them and help develop it. But with that said, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Commissioner Kitchens, congratulations on your 2018 Solar Initiative Award.
Solar Sam.
Thank you, sir. Like I said, like I told you, you're Solar Dude of 2018.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll piggyback on what, Jonathan said, Commissioner Pitt said, I think we have a jewel there, not only economically, but educationally too. I think there's some hidden history there that I think, would be good for everybody. We can learn a lot from it. I think it's, I looked at it, I looked at the history of it. There's a lot more to learn about it, but some really neat stuff there that digs deep into the history of Jones County. So I think it's something we definitely need to look into. So that's about all I got.
It's really unreal to think. Can you imagine today having somebody say, you need to cut this rock with this,
No.
and
No.
see what they used to cut the rock that built the courthouse, and
Right.
and it's
It's
just
hard to believe how many people come to Jones County and say, you've got something that nobody else has, and we're not capitalizing on it. And that's,
Right.
I really think we need to looking at whether it's a work session with the tourism group or the historical society, whatever it needs to be. We need to. I know it was looked at a long time ago, and I don't know what the result was, but it's not what it is, what it should be. So maybe we need to relook at it.
all right. Well, very well. I need a motion to adjourn to go into executive session for personnel.
So move, Chairman.
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Thank you.
Yeah, you did it right. Good.